Committee. We're expecting Nana Fredo to join us shortly. When he comes in, I will do the needful to introduce him. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to the show. It's good to have you.
Good morning, Abna.
Good morning.
Hope you're well.
I'm very good, thank you. Hope you are too. So we will get on with that conversation this morning, but we'll start from the Electoral Commission and what is happening there exactly. We heard this week about a petition that had been sent to the President calling for the removal of Madam or Mrs. Charlotte Osei, citing various allegations of malfeasance, breaches of the Constitution, and some other issues. Now, I will start with Mr. Opong. Obviously, we cannot go into the allegations here.
Exactly.
Yes, but we can look at the circumstances around this whole development and talk about it. The petitioners, through their lawyer, cites Article 146, and the lawyers for the EC chairperson have also had cause to raise the issue about the fact that, yes, if you're coming under Article 146, then perhaps you should have, resorted to some confidentiality rules in there. But here we are with the petition leaked into the public space, causing, clearly in contravention of the confidentiality rules in there. Now, what do you make of this development, looking at this situation, in particular the fact that there's this, thing out there in the public space?
Well, thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. This is an interesting matter that comes up usually where a petition like this has been filed with the President, and a number of cases, even at the level of the Supreme Court, have come up and determined by the Supreme Court. Remember the Ajay Party Brighter Cote case, and then also the recent Derry, Justice Derry versus Attorney General Tiger IPI announced issues, where the court specifically stated that once the proceedings are commenced, and they are commenced by the filing of the petition with the President, effort should be made not to disclose the content of the petition and the subsequent proceedings to the public. But there was some interesting competing principles that were also established in the Derry case in particular, where the court, I think through Justice Benin, also weighed the public's right to know and be informed of the conduct of people in public office whom they have appointed to act on their behalf, vis-a-vis the interests of the person accused or against whom the petition is filed, to also have not only his integrity protected, but also being protected from harm. Because if people also get to know that this is even the mere allegation, usually will inform people, and people will be more concerned about the allegation even more than when you have been exonerated. So it's also important that you match the two and strike a balance that, as much as possible, and in the wisdom of the people of Ghana, and that Article 46(3), the Chief Justice is required to make a prima facie decision upon receipt of the petition from the President. And indeed, from the date the petition is filed with the President up to the time a final pronouncement is made, all these proceedings are supposed to be in camera. Of course, the court in the Derry case fell short of saying that the entire proceedings should be declared void because of the disclosure to the public. Because in their view, that may also then in a way become a potent tool in the hand of the person against whom a petition has been filed. In the wisdom of the court, that person may, or in the view of the court, that person may leak or disclose the content and then turn around to benefit from it. So whilst the court affirmed, or if you like, apply the earlier decision in the Jechum case, the court was also minded not to say emphatically that once a disclosure is made of a petition or the proceedings are disclosed, then the entire proceedings should be declared void as the applicant or the plaintiff sought the court to declare. But this matter has come up again. One, we don't know who disclosed it to the public. Indeed,
well, the lawyer categorically denies that they leaked it.
Yes, so, but indeed, I have been wary of matters that come up in the, well, if you like, the so-called social media, especially things that are in writing, because there have been occasions where matters came up even about the removal of or dismissal of ministers, only to turn around that the whole thing was a hoax. I mean, so for me, maybe it is the silence of the lawyers or the person against whom the petition is made, which appears to validate these whole things in the media. So,
but at least we have the president's office of the president confirming that yes, they are in receipt of such petition.
Well, I mean, if that is in words, I mean, but otherwise, if it's in writing, for me, I treat it with a bit of caution.
Okay.
Yes, but so looking at it, as you said, we cannot, we are not permitted to go into the merits because we will be then taking over the job of other people who have been entrusted with it by the people of Ghana. But of course, the procedure, as we know it, is quite clear.
Right.
Interestingly, the Constitution doesn't clearly say that the petition should be filed by a person.
Yes, I was going to go into that, the fact about the anonymity of the petitions and all, but let me have the take of the other two, and then we go on into this issue. Honorable Adongo, let me hear from you on this. What do you make of all this happenings? I know the NDC has stated emphatically that they would resist all attempts to have the EC chairperson removed. What's your position on this? How do you see this whole development?
Well, good morning to you and my co-panelists. I just realized we'll be meeting at PIAC. So
yes.
Good morning to the viewers, particularly my constituents in Bolgatanga Central. Well, I think this development is a very worrying development. And we have to put this within the context of how the EC chair, has traveled the path in her office.
Since her coming into
since her coming into office, there have been several attempts to malign her. There have been several attempts to impugn even her integrity, even before the whistle was blown. And so when matters like this happen, you can't take them out of the context of what she's experienced in the past. Yes, we may not be able to comment on the substance, but obviously from the position of making sure that constitutional bodies are able to run their office and have the tenure protected by everybody, we have to be able to investigate whether some of these are just a continuation of a process that was begun even when she was appointed. So in our view, if you start a process to remove the EC chair, we have a major stake in that process, and we are watching keenly, and we are very determined to resist any attempt, and that has to be emphasized. Any attempt whatsoever to want to remove that woman from her office, because we saw Afarijan come under several such attacks, and this is an office that we have to protect. We have to ensure that that office is given the serenity and the kind of stability that it desires in order to transcend different political parties and different governments. And we feel that it is a process that we are watching quite keenly. Yes, there are legal processes that can be followed to undertake any process. But we are also aware that some of these legal processes have unseen hands. I mean,
I was going to go into that because clearly this is a constitutional provision. Somebody is triggered, and
let me tell you, we pass laws to protect certain offices. Only recently we passed the Bank of Ghana Amended Act to give protection and secure office to the governor of the central bank. We're told one day that he has resigned. I hope you understand me. We have constitutional bodies like the Labour Commission and the rest, whose officers have had to leave office. And so this is a continuum of series of activities. It cannot be seen in isolation. And so we in the NDC are very mindful of the fact that we have to ensure that we don't politicize constitutional office. And once we are able to cross that bridge, I'm sure that Ghana will be the better for it.
Very well. Mr. Jantua, this is obviously a provision in the Constitution that, yes, if anybody makes or submits a petition to the President, this is what should happen next and all of that. And so clearly that provision has been triggered. Do you see an unseen hand behind this, as is being suggested by the NDC? And they make this assertion within a context. I think that context is very well known to you as well. So what do you say to that?
Abna, thank you. Good morning to my fellow panelists and good morning to our viewers. The basis of this particular issue, when you look at the discussions, has been predicated on the process of impeaching the Electoral Commissioner. Chairperson. We haven't had the chance to look at the substance of the petition. So we are skirting around what would happen if they have to impeach the Electoral Commissioner. Now, as you rightly said, Article 3 of 146, Clause 3 of 146 indicates that if the President receives a petition for the removal of a Justice of the Supreme Court other than the Chief Justice, or for the removal of the Chairman of a regional tribunal, he shall refer the petition to the Chief Justice, who shall determine whether there's a prima facie case. Now, as you all rightly said, what is silent here is whether those who have presented the petition should be whistleblowers, should be persons who don't have a name, or the petition should state exactly who is presenting it. That is silent. So you look at what the Constitution says, and you look at what needs to be done for the President to trigger this, and you ask yourself, does the President have the right to trigger it in the absence of no name being on the petition? That is a very gray area.
All it says is when he receives, or if he receives a petition.
Yeah, but if he receives the petition, definitely the President would like to know who has sent this petition, wouldn't he?
Does he? Would want to is quite distinct from whether he needs to or he has to by the law.
Well, the law doesn't say. It's a gray area.
Yep.
So he would use his own, he's also a lawyer, so he would use his own, if I can use the word, gumption, to see whether this particular petition will stand in the court of law. That's the first premise.
But is that his responsibility at this point?
You see,
to go into those.
The advantage
he's to comply strictly with 1463, which says if the President receives a petition for the removal of a Justice of the Superior Court other than the Chief Justice, he shall refer the petition to the Chief Justice, who shall determine whether there is a prima facie case. So the person here to do the determination of whatever really is the Chief Justice.
Yes.
The President is totally out of any determination.
But
he is a conduit at this point.
Yes, but I don't believe that the President will receive a petition and just read the heading and pass it to the Chief Justice. I don't believe he will do that. He would like to satisfy within himself that the petition in front of him is legible enough to move to the next stage of the Chief Justice.
I disagree.
Why not? Why not?
Go on.
Why not? I mean, he won't just receive it and hand it over, would he? Is that what we're saying? I doubt it. I doubt it. He's a legal person. He has a legal background. I'm sure he would go into the merits of it and determine himself. No, hang on. Determine for himself. But as you said,
I see Mr. Paul and I'll come to you for that. But let Mr. Johnson
yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Even though he determines for himself and he finds that there might be no case, the law mandates him to pass it on to the Chief Justice, for the Chief Justice to make a determination.
Exactly.
So within himself, He would have to satisfy his own conscience, but the law mandates him to pass it on. So I can see him passing it on. No two ways about that.
Right.
That's what the law says. It's when you get a president who doesn't stick by the law, who would now take a unilateral decision and say, I ain't sending it to no Chief Justice. I'm going to do it myself. But
the American way.
Yes, that's the American way, as we are seeing with Donald Trump. So yes. But, you know, the Electoral Commissioner, she is not subject, and I believe, and you correct me if I'm wrong, she's not subject to the control or direction with regards to her performance and duties as the Electoral Commissioner. And what they are claiming has really got nothing to do with her duties as and functions of Electoral Commissioner. It is more on the administrative side. Now, I then ask the question, can you impeach somebody because they haven't really performed administratively? Can you? I'm not sure. Maybe
administrative or otherwise, it's part of the functions of the chairperson of the EC.
Yes.
So yes, if you're, I mean, well, you're looking at functions of the EC, administrative, whatever else it's there.
Which is more compelling? Which is more compelling to impeach the Electoral Commissioner? If it so happened that during the election she did something way out of line, yes, that is very compelling. But if it's administrative, and I'm not sure, maybe my fellow counsel here would help me. If the Electoral Commission laws indicate how issues should be handled if they are administrative, I don't know. But if that is the case, then this thing could be handled on an administrative level. If there are arbitration clauses within the Electoral Commissioner's mandate in terms of her administrative role, then we can go that way. What really worries me is the anonymity of the petition. When you read the graphic story today, and you read Madam Charlotte Assay's statement she's put in there, she has mentioned a name in there, one Maxwell Agyemang.
That's the lawyer.
That's the lawyer.
Yeah.
Now, what baffles me is why the lawyer is silent on it. Why is he silent?
Silent on the names?
Yes.
He says at the appropriate time the names
What
will be
appropriate
revealed.
time? I mean, what are we protecting here? What are we hiding here? That the names have to be silent. I don't understand that. And see, that now makes people feel there is some underhand business going on. He's a legal person, and he's mandated as a legal person to do things in the legal way. This is not a whistleblower. This petition is not sent by a whistleblower. And even when whistleblowers send petitions, do they send petitions because they want somebody to be impeached? No. They send petitions so that the normal course of law takes its line. And if it so happens that the individual who the petition is concerned has to be impeached, the law will determine that. The powers that be will determine that. So I think he owes it to Ghanaians to bring that name out. But on the outside of this, I asked myself the question, when I heard all this going on, I sat and asked myself the question, does this have to do with anything to do with the Yoko investigations in the endowment fund? Are they trying to cover something up, to throw dust, you know, with regards to the Electoral Commissioner, to try and rope her in? And I believe that Yoko are likely to find more discoveries of wrongdoings where this endowment fund is concerned. I hope it is not. And I hope for nothing at all there could be an amicable solution, especially if it's administrative. However, if it has to go the full process, let it go the full process. And if she needs to be impeached, let us impeach her. For me, it does not hold water to go through all this process and in the end realize there was no case. Wasted our time.
Well, the Chief Justice has a duty to determine whether there's a prima facie case before,
yes,
going further into
even
setting up a panel.
Even at that point, we are all sitting on tenterhooks to see what is going to happen.
Yeah.
And I don't think that is fair on Ghanaians. I think
but that's what the Constitution has provided for.
No. I say I don't feel that it's fair on Ghanaians for the Chief Justice to now get it, determine and find that there's no case. So what was the use of the petition?
But I mean, anybody can come up with anything.
Well,
and so it needs to be subjected to some,
I hope in the end we would see a positive resolution to this. Either what the petitioners are saying, or either there's a way of solving this administrative problem so that we can move on. Look, elections is what in 2020. Campaigning and all the paraphernalia that goes with elections will start. We're in 2017. 2018, at least, end of 2018, early 2019, all this is going to start. We need an electoral commission to be ready for us, and we don't want these machinations to mar the elections for 2020.
Very well. Viewers and listeners, let me quickly introduce Nana Feduajimano Foriata. He joined us, and he is the second vice chairperson of the NPP in the Eastern region. Nana, you're welcome.
Thank you, ma'am.
I will come to you in a minute or in a moment, but let me go quickly to Mr. Opon here to look at the issue about the anonymity of the petitioners and whether or not it would affect anything. It renders this whole process, void or anything. Quickly touch on that.
Well, thank you. Well, it's a matter that once again has been determined. Yeah. If you take, there was this case of Justice Asiedu-Dartey versus Attorney General, where the judge heard that a prima facie case has been made against him and was invited to answer. And they went to the Supreme Court to challenge that, first of all, they had not been aware, or he had not been aware that any petition had been filed with the president, neither had he been informed of the identity of anyone who is accusing him. I mean, at the end of the day, the Supreme Court held that the committee that established the prima facie case, which was sent to the president then, and which the president referred to the Chief Justice to trigger the whole process, had that competence to also make a petition to the president. So in other words, it was the committee that was deemed to be the petitioner. Then also in the Logo, Justice Logo and others versus the Attorney General, the Tiger IPI case, one of the fundamental issues that the justices wanted the Supreme Court to determine is who is it that has accused us? Because we've been told that the person is Tiger IPI. We've gone to, which means it's a legal person, can only come into existence pursuant to the operation of law and all that. But we've gone to companies registry. There is nothing like that. There's no person like that in existence. And so the entire proceedings, the petition and the proceedings that follow, should be declared void. The court found that, yes, the petition was made on a letterhead of an entity, or at least so everybody thought, called Tiger IPI. But in the content, somebody has defined himself or identified himself as Anas Arimiyao Anas, that I, a citizen of Ghana, and all that followed. And on that basis, the court said that, as far as the court is concerned, the petitioner was Anas Arimiyao Anas, irrespective of the fact that he sent the petition on the letterhead, and the petition has been quoted here, on the letterhead of an entity that one may have found later not to have been in existence. So the issue of identity comes up. But you remember that at the proceedings, we are told that the judges themselves were not able to identify the accusers. We all know they were in hood. And if we are protecting their physical image, it's possible that even their voices may also be different. And sometimes we are told there are three persons who may look alike in terms of structure. So today, if you call Justice Logo and ask him, maybe at an identification parade, he will never be able to tell you that this was my accuser.
Right.
So even the issue of identity also becomes relevant. I do not hold the view that there must of necessity be an identifiable person. I don't believe, and that is why in the wisdom of the people of Ghana, we didn't say that if a person files a petition with the president, say if the president receives.
So this brings it into sharp focus with, you know, the case of Annan and Richard Annan, where Shraj was looking at, or the court was looking at complainant.
Yes.
That was quite, or that is quite distinct from this one.
Because that is required.
A person, but
that
here
is required.
It's just a petition.
It says once the when the president receives a petition, in my view, the president also being a citizen of Ghana, the Chief Justice being a citizen of Ghana, can also send a petition. So if a committee set up...
But can the president send a petition to himself?
No. What I'm saying is that
he has
the
received
process,
a petition, but this petition is from anonymous people.
Yes. Let's take it this way.
Yes.
A lawyer has written to you. The lawyer has signed a letter that I represent some persons called concerned staff.
Staff of the EC.
Yes. You have received the document. And I don't really agree respectfully that the president even have to read the petition. That petition must be under cover of a letter. Forward as received. That's my understanding. The president has no discretion. You can imagine if we had given that power to any president to determine who and who should be removed from office. It will defeat the letter and spirit of the Constitution.
Right.
Because this provision was brought into this entire constitutional process because of our past experience, where at 1 o'clock people will be looking for their radio and listening to radio, whether their father or they themselves have been removed from office.
Right.
I mean, chief justices have been removed without even being given a hearing and all that. So I believe that, and we know in law,
the fact of the anonymity doesn't do anything to this.
Not at all. For me, once the processes commence, I mean, in fact, they have commenced by the receipt, and I will be surprised if by now the president hasn't complied with the Constitution.
Well, he's out of town, I believe. So
previous one, like Madame Loretta's one, I think it was the chief of staff who even signed the letter forwarding it. The executive is a system,
right,
like the judiciary and so on. So, just in conclusion, I'm saying that once a process like this has commenced, nobody has a discretion. Even the chief justice doesn't have a discretion not to conduct a prima facie case. When the committee gives its recommendation, the president nor the chief justice doesn't have any discretion not to comply with the recommendation, so that we protect. But just in conclusion,
please quickly, and then
my worry is really about the fact that we just sometimes are selective, and once in a while go to the judge's situation. In fact, those of us who rather even wanted to be a bit rational with the system, of course, we had our backlash. But today, a person who holds an analogous position, a similar process is commenced against that person. And there are people who say that there is no way this process will be allowed to go on. In any case, I heard Mr. Chairman Sabonsu, a voice that may be attributed to him this morning, that they are inviting Madam Charlotte to say.
Yes, we'll go into those
also go.
Other
so,
issues, yes.
If Parliament has the right to summon the lady and to find a way of resolving this matter, why shouldn't the express constitutional provision that should be followed, why should that be subverted?
That not be followed. Very well, that's fine. But I need to go to Nana Fredua. But Nana, just indulge me here, because I think Mr. Dongo wants to quickly come in here.
Yes,
quickly, and then I go to Nana.
I think I have listened to lawyer quite carefully, and I was following the argument. Where I began to fall out was, you see, the concerned workers of EC that you are talking about is a tiger eye that doesn't exist. Okay, so let's assume that concerned citizens of concerned workers of EC is a tiger eye that doesn't exist. But in the body of the letter, somebody was identified as Anas Aremia, Anas, isn't it? Once you identified, even if you can't see the person physically, there's a human being like that on this earth. So that person has been identified. Now, there were reasons why this particular person said, I didn't want to be identified as a physical person the way you want to see me. And we know his modus operandi. No, as
a whistleblower.
You made your point. So at the end of the day, you can say that in the body of the letter, somebody was identified.
But you're saying in this particular instance, nobody in particular has been.
Then it becomes very complicated because the logic of the argument that Tiger Eye, even though it didn't exist, in the body we found somebody. Unless you want to say me that
determination
at the end of the day,
that determination was made at the time.
I was quiet when you were talking. So just let me make my point because I wasn't interrupting.
Yes, honorable.
You see, the point is this, is very simple. You can't have a faceless. If we're just going to be having those kind of anonymous allegations, then we'll live in chaos. We certainly will live in chaos. If I just don't like your face because you work in an office that I don't like, I just write a petition and get a lawyer to represent me. This is not the case of a lawyer. The lawyer is not a petitioner.
Oh, I know him.
So at the end of the day,
very well. It's just a matter of time. We'll see how it pans out. But Nana, finally, I come to you. Your perspective on all this development, but also we cannot, excuse me, we cannot run away from the fact that indeed there have been certain antecedents to this, which perhaps some people would latch on and say, yes, well, this thing about an unseen hand may be true. In the midst of all this, like Mr. Opon mentioned here, or was it, well, I can't remember exactly who, but the fact that Honorable Osei Mensah-Bonsu, made a note that, yes, Madam Charlotte Osei is supposed to appear before Parliament to answer questions about the accreditation processes for journalists leading up to the election, the period leading up to the elections, and a whole lot of happenings at the EC. They're totally different.
Yes. They also talk to her about this particular matter.
Yes, this is also to be, yes. But the point I'm making is there have been pockets of incidents here and there leading up to this.
They haven't called it.
The premise for calling it. Exactly. The question is to Nana Fedua.
The
premise for calling it.
Just a minute. So Nana,
do you have to be that?
I'm asking Nana. Nana is the one to answer the question. So Nana, tell me, what do you make of all of this within the context I've tried to, paint here?
I should shut up.
I'm listening to you. Okay. Are you speechless?
Well, it's about where to start from. Because this last point, which has become argumentative, is also an interesting base. But it would be good to write an essay, a verbal essay on this matter.
I like
this is something
down.
This is something of a salad. It's a mix of things.
It's a cocktail.
Or a cocktail, yeah. And well, let's pick them one by one. But let's go with the last point about the petitioner, because I thought that was very interesting. First of all, based on the two legal positions stated by Lawyer Yao here, it's not his opinion. It's a legal opinion based that can form the basis for a decision.
They're actually precedents we have.
Right? So, in the first instance, is anybody identified at all beyond a letterhead? In the first example he cited. And then in the second one, it goes as far as citing a letterhead from an organization and then a certain individual who, by the submission of lawyer, and I should say lawyer, since there are three lawyers here, by the assertion of lawyer, even the purported accusers could not come till this day not identify their own petitioner. They wouldn't even know and ask if they saw him. So the point about the petition, it's thrown out the window that the person has to be identified. It says that Mr. Maxwell Opoku-Agyeman wrote that letter, and in the letter he states clearly that he is prepared to bring those people if need be. So he has not run away from a responsibility. So it responds to the Honorable Adongo's concern, because they have said that they will submit themselves. There is a condition that they don't state, but by the lawyer's own letter or petition, they said basically they know that the president is the ultimate point. So they submit themselves to that situation, if need be. Now the question becomes, is the president even held responsible for having to ensure that there's a face, since there's a word faceless, faceful. Is there a face? He has no responsibility in that matter. The Constitution says, shall pass it on to the Chief Justice. So it is exactly, forward it has received. Even the president cannot do anything, as they say, he can't do shilling.
But he can read it for his own interest.
Of course. And he can't do anything.
But it's not a requirement. He doesn't need to.
He cannot tamper with.
He doesn't need to.
He doesn't need to.
He doesn't need to, but for his own interest.
And when he has read it.
For his own interest.
When he has read it, he cannot tamper with the words in the process.
Definitely.
He can tamper, he can do what the parliamentary body is planning to do. He can probably invite the commissioner and say, what's going on? Let's have a chat. You know, what's going on? He can probably do that.
Yes.
But to stop the process is not possible.
Not possible.
And then I also now ask the question, why are we so always eager to stop legal processes? Yet, on the same side of the coin, we're always eager to say that as for us, we don't like the truth, we don't like to do the things the proper way, we do, corruption is a bad, all those things. And then when somebody takes the initiative to try and fix it, whether the person will succeed or not is not my concern. The fact that somebody wants to fix a problem, suddenly we're up in arms, and whether the person is justified or not, running commentary, that one I don't have a problem with, though. But it's as if would like the person to stop. I was just reading the item from the Daily Graphic of today. 2 clergymen call for coming, and they're calling about peace and tension. What tension, really? I don't know. I mean, I like their advice, but I also think that the cart is being positioned so that the horse can't move. You know what I mean? That's what's going on here. Because let the process take its course. Now, the substantive matter. It is a group of people under the auspices of their lawyer feel that something has to happen with one of our institutions. So they've gone through the process. I read the law. I'm not a lawyer. I've read the processes that were cited, 146. Then I go to the EC's position. By the way, it just struck me that in this our constitution, the first serious body, no, if I shouldn't use the word serious, because everybody
the first constitutional body.
The first body considered by the Constitution is the EC, because it talks about our right to vote, and therefore how it should be managed, and therefore who should manage that voting process. That's how important this position is. And so when you start hearing that, now pay attention to these words, you start hearing the smell of politicization on partisan levels. How petty can we be on matters of this depth and seriousness? And you see,
are you saying it's not possible?
I'm saying that why do you want it to be your first port of call?
That individual.
Mr. Jantua.
Oh, I don't mind. I'm not like Mr. Adongo. I don't mind because I like to interrupt sometimes.
That individual has a right to determine whether there are political insinuations in it.
Oh, have I disputed rights?
Yes.
So I also have the right to raise the issue.
Exactly.
That, is it not time, if I'm going back to my matter of the coin, is it not time for us to stop playing with that coin of we want processes to go through,
it's going to be
and then
difficult.
At the same time we don't want it
very
to go
difficult
through.
Because of the system.
And one of the first places, and the one that has been most disruptive in our lives, is politicization of legal matters.
I totally agree.
That's what I'm arguing about. I'm saying.
But the politics of this country will not allow that to stop.
Okay, Kwame, I've established that, so have you, but I'm arguing against it. I'm saying that, is it not time for us to begin to differentiate? Change has come on. No, and you see, so now, if a year ago I tolerated it because I wanted political power, I will not tolerate it anymore, because the political power that I fought for was to do the right thing. If somebody did it last year, and it would suit the people because Mark Anthony has to convince the crowd, the people, so that they see where he's going, eventually to make the point that Caesar was wrongfully killed. That's where I stand. I'm saying it is time for us to stop that. I almost used the word nonsense. I realize I'm on TV. I can't use that word. It is time for us to stop that. Let us deal with truths. Let's let principles win. The first port of call should not be the partisanship. Even the EC in her response talks about the politics of it. You know that, unless I didn't read the English properly, it seems to me that when she says politics, it's not about the partisan thing.
No,
it's about the
within the
yes, that one I agree with her. That one I agree with her.
In the institution, yes.
That kind of politics is anybody. But that thing about MPPs behind it,
yes. I agree
that one is total hogwash.
I agree with you there.
It's petty.
Yes.
What are the good words? What are the
without
evidence?
Without evidence. You can't do that. Without evidence.
The political parties.
I'm looking for more. It's childish.
Without evidence.
Your point is well made. So you can carry on.
Let me enjoy this day. Isn't it sad? Don't we want Ghana to move on matters of this nature? I know you want to talk about the president's discussions with the media later, but let me refer to the particular point he made about depoliticizing criminal and other such matters. Don't we want to get there? How shameful can we? So you said the point is made. Now on the other matters, I wish in some way, but I think that I mean it's difficult to take a firm position on it for me. But I wish in some way that the EC boss hadn't spoken.
I was going to ask that question, given that, yes.
Contradicts her own speaking position.
I was going to
she says, I'll wait till, and yet she has spoken. And she's actually passed judgment on the action. I think that she should have waited, because if she's going to be vindicated, the public will sway in her direction very easily, without, because the truth is that, why? Didn't I have issues with Madame Osei during the electoral process? Her appointment for me was a beautiful thing. So that was not where we were going to, for me it was not my concern. It was the processes leading to the election and how it's going to be handled. Those were the issues that we had. But, and therefore, would it necessarily call for her to, well, her vindication will come out of such actions. So for me, I would have thought that should have held back. Then at the same time, I get the feeling that, you know, when you're under fire, and then nobody's speaking for you, and then you have the NDC coming out trying to partisanize the thing and all that, you probably have to clarify that you are professional. You want things done this way. And I think that her statement asserts that.
Very well.
So I give her that.
Thanks, Nana. But let's take a listen to the minority as they, you know, made a statement on this particular issue. I believe the Honorable Haruna Idrisu. We'll take a listen, and then I have received a message here which is coming in from Professor Joshua Alabi. I'll try to read. It's quite lengthy, but I'll try to read some parts of it, and then we go for a break. When we come back, we go into these issues some more. So let's take a listen to the Honorable Haruna Idrisu, I believe.
Is that the same electoral commissioner in whom today they have doubt declared him president of the republic. And therefore he should know that when the sovereign will and the voices of the people speak, we'll walk him quietly out on the basis of the sovereign mandate of the people of Ghana. Therefore, if he thinks that getting control of the referee of our elections is an important thing to do, we are reminding him that he should not extend his encroachment and political polarization of the public and civil service to the Electoral Commission of Ghana.
Great. So that was the Honorable Haruna Idrisu in making that brief statement. But let me read briefly this coming in from Professor Joshua Alabi. He titles it "Safeguarding Ghana's Democratic Credentials." He says, for some time now, there has been widespread rumor alleging administrative misconduct on the part of Ghana's Electoral Commission. The rumors appear to be fueled by an attempt to remove the chairperson of the commission from office. Recent developments pointing to some underground maneuvering to remove the Electoral Commissioner give credence to the rumor. And he goes on to say that it must be noted that our dear country, Ghana, has enjoyed peaceful elections since the inception of the 1992 Constitution. The various changes in government in the Fourth Republic have been presided over by the EC of Ghana to the admiration of many. with the recent electoral success further deepening Ghana's democratic credentials. The country has built a very strong commission that has earned the respect of the international community and has in many instances become a case of reference in Africa. The commission has built an enviable record not only in Africa but the world. The petition to remove the chairperson of the Electoral Commission is the first of its kind in our democratic history, and the scales must be balanced carefully to avoid the country tipping over towards the path of hate, suspicions, retaliations, and recriminations. Any attempts to undermine and disrupt the Commission will not serve any political party any good at this critical point in Ghana's democracy. There will be no winner, but Ghana as a country will be the loser. And he says, I wish to call on the instigators and those in officialdom to exercise utmost caution in dealing with this sensitive matter in order not to endanger our fledgling democracy. And in conclusion, he says, without discussing the merits or demerits of the petition, I wish to call on the President and all those in positions of authority to balance the sensitivity of the issue with the current state of political tension and suspicions in this country to safeguard the peace Ghana has enjoyed and should continue to enjoy. He signs Professor Joshua Alabi. We'll take a break. When we come back, we will subject this piece here to some interesting scrutiny, and we'll see how far that goes. You're watching New Day, Saturday edition. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching and listening to New Day, Saturday edition, live on TV3 here in Accra. We're also live on 3FM 92.7. And we're streaming live on the internet at 3news.com, also on our Facebook page, TV3 News, and also on GhanaWeb.com. I'll be going back to the panel for the views on the message that I read and from Professor Joshua Alabi, and also the piece we heard from Honorable Haruna Idrisu representing the minority's position on the petition calling for the removal of the EC chairperson. But quickly, let me bring in viewers and listeners. Let me read some text messages. Al-Hassan Wanana in Wa is saying, NPP as a party is innocent about the petition against the EC boss, Madam Charlotte Osei. So the NDC shouldn't tag the NPP with this petition against the EC boss. And Aliu Mahamabusa says, the incompetence of the NDC seems to be compounding day by day, even in opposition, because they haven't learned their lessons. And he goes on to say that instead of them, spending their time on dealing with their committee reports, organizing themselves for 2020, they are busy organizing press conferences and presenting nothing serious. He goes on and on and on, but your point is made, so I can carry on. The current government is putting on all efforts to make the economy of the country great. Let's put our hope in them, and that's Harry Zakor in Kade. And this one comes in and says, what is the position of the law in the case of faceless petitions like we are having in this case? The president should take the position of the law. And he goes on to say, can we compare? Okay, somebody's asking if we can compare this to the Muntie 3 petition. No, we cannot. They are completely different things. So, Abna, NPP has nothing to offer Ghanaians 6 months of empty promises. And this is Alex and Laura. Hi, Abna, good morning to you and your panelists. The president's interaction with the media was successful because the president admitted his faults. Okay, so you're looking at that. We'll be going on to that, and then I will read your text. But now let's focus on the happenings at the EC and the petition for the removal of the EC. Good morning to you, Abna, and your panelists. Per my humble ratings, the performance of this. Okay, so you're looking at that. Well, I'll skip this and come back to that. But let's see the messages on the EC chairperson's petition. If it proves she is guilty, why not? If she is not, then she should be allowed to do her work. She is no better than Mrs. Lamptey. I believe this is Mrs. Loretta Lamptey. The defense from the NDC is too suspicious, and from time to time, the EC must be audited. After all, EC is run by taxpayers' money. This is Jamil Tiani in Wa. This one coming in says, good morning to you, Abna, and your panel, especially to Nana Fedra. Abna, the issue surrounding the EC boss should not, he says what? Should not be under I'm not sure what you're saying here, but you're saying Ghana, it needs to be investigated for the institution to be free enough to carry out their constitutional mandate as an independent body. And this is Busua in Gushegu. It says all the NDC propaganda will be exposed, and they think they can throw dust in the eyes of the electorates. And so what a shameful thing to do. Another one coming in from Ernest in Jama North Region says the EC boss has done nothing. It's because NPP knew that they will lose, or know that they will lose 2020 coming elections. They want to fix their member there to aid them in the coming elections. Lots of conspiracy theories coming in. AU Farouk in Tamale says, good morning to you all. In fact, all the allegations leveled against the EC boss is a plot to oust her by the NPP administration to rid the 2020, to rid her from conducting the 2020 elections. It says, when you lie your way to power, the lies will expose you day by day. Abdul Ganiyu in Tamale is saying, good morning, Abna, and good morning to your panelists. I honestly think there is something wrong with the so-called EC officials wanting to remove the chairperson. In my candid opinion, the president should not listen to them because this is a recipe for chaos. And this coming in says, EC, if Ghanaians or top government officials he says, no longer trust the credibility of the EC chair, then this call for the right procedure to be followed by removing her from office. If top government officials or security agencies have investigated her and found her victim of the situation, she must not go scot-free. We must let her face the law courts if she deserves, or if it's necessary. And that's Aaron Babako coming in there. And let me read the last one here, and then we'll go on to the panel. In as much as I like the embattled EC chair, the NDC must allow the laws of the land to work, either other than jumping into her defense by making wild and unfounded allegations against the NPP. What are they afraid of by also petitioning the public with their baseless accusations? Nanado is a man of integrity who is a strong advocate of the rule of law, and that's why I admire him most. I would have to pull the brakes here and come back to the panel. There are quite a number of messages coming through, but I will try to read them intermittently as we go on. But back to the piece I read before we went on the break and the minorities' position here. I will Honorable Adongo, I'll come back to you, given that this is coming from your side. So let me have the views of the others and then come back to you finally on that. Mr. Opong,
yes.
The views coming in suggest, yes, so there's this perhaps, again, it's an unseen hand, or there's an attempt to politicize the whole process, or that it's a witch hunt of sorts and all. Again, I'm going back to the fact that, yes, this is a constitutional provision. Question is, at what point would it be appropriate for such a provision to be triggered? If any time it's going to be triggered, such calls or such accusations will be coming up. When would be an appropriate time?
Well, thank you. I think there is no really an appropriate or inappropriate time. The Constitution makes it clear that in respect of justices of the Superior Court, the person in charge of SHRAJ, also civic education, and now the chairman and 2 deputy chairmen of the Electoral Commission, if a person, and under Article 146, it spells out the circumstances that where a person is of the view that a public officer under any of the offices I've mentioned has, in his view, engaged in a conduct that he considers to be a misbehavior, incompetence, or inability to perform the functions of his office arising from infirmity of mind or body. So it is what the person believes. Any of the conduct of these persons may be brought under any of the rubric of or categories of grounds. It is purely for that person, whether as a citizen of Ghana or a person in Ghana, living in Ghana, otherwise here. That person will then have to forward this in a form of a petition, of course, as it says, stated misbehavior, to the president. Whether that person's view can be affirmed or not, it is not for him. It is a constitutional injunction, or if it's a constitutional matter, the person may just, all he has to do is to file the allegation. Of course, we will have to caution ourselves so that we don't also run down our institutions and those who are in charge of it. But the courts have established that once the petition is sent to the president, the proceedings commence. And therefore, if we just say that we want right things to be done in accordance with law, and yet when people are complying with what they believe to be the intendment of the Constitution, whether expressed or in terms of its spirit, and we impute ill motive. Well, on another platform, someone was even wondering why this particular lawyer should do this to his classmate. Of course, even lawyers sometimes do it. We wonder why our own colleague lawyers who are now judges to even rule a case against us. But they are performing a function. I think it's even better to have your own colleague judge, classmate judge, to rule against you. At least if nothing at all, the semblance of fairness. The fact that some of them will even declare this person is my friend, and yet will go ahead to test the law against him. That shows that we are just doing what is right. So we say Obama said, oh, institutions must work. I disagree. We have strong institutions. What we don't have is not strong public officers, but those of us they are working for. We will not allow them to work when it comes to certain persons. Madame Loretta Lamte went through these similar allegations, going to rent a hotel, and similar such allegations. We sat by, we never questioned, and her position is analogous to that of the chairman of the Electoral Commission and that of a Court of Appeal, Justice of the Court of Appeal. Why didn't we raise these matters? Judges, once again, I'll go back to it. Parliament didn't call them. Clergy didn't call them. We left them to their fate, and now some of them are dismissed.
Based on prima facie.
That is it. But that was
on the prima facie case.
No doubt. Not just prima facie. Yeah. Beyond the prima facie,
The
a committee of 5.
Yes.
So the point I'm making is because we allowed the processes to go through. Look, imagine the pressure people put on President Mahama to forward the petition to the Chief Justice. Some even threatened to go to court.
Very well.
And the same persons who were part of it and never questioned it. And it is in the interest of the chairman of the Electoral Commission. And by the way, the president, contrary to what the chairman is saying, the president doesn't have to respond to her. It is the Chief Justice who will have to respond. I think that is maybe inadvertence, or maybe she construed the law. But contrary to what she said, it's not the president that will have to inform her. So the point is that it is even in her interest that these allegations are investigated and a resolution is made, of course, as much as possible. Otherwise, in the minds of people, once allegations are made against you,
the perception
I
is
bet you
it sticks and it goes.
Yes,
but
it is not good for the. So please, those, of course, people have their opinion. They can take the political angle, but at the same time, let's not impugn the constitutional process as well.
Very well.
Okay.
On that note, let me make reference to here the piece I read, and this is to Mr. Jantua. I'm quoting here from Professor Alabi. He says, "I wish to call on the instigators and those in officialdom to exercise utmost caution in dealing with this sensitive matter in order not to endanger our fledgling democracy." The question is, how is it that we are deemed, or this process is deemed to be endangering our fledgling democracy when we are complying with the very constitution that guarantees this very democracy we're talking about?
Let me just chip this.
Mr. Jantua.
Because you see, a similar process began. The deputy chairman has been written to by the chairman of the Electoral Commission.
Yes, and that in itself,
suspending her.
Great.
When there is no power vested in her to do so.
Very well. That is a good point. We can come back to that. But Mr. Jantua, to this issue about
specifically
Mr. Professor Joshua Alabi's comments here.
Specifically to the issue of the Electoral Commission and not what Yao has just said. Specifically to this, it is based on a prima facie case where the evidence is overwhelming. I don't see how.
Who established this?
I mean, I don't see the Chief Justice.
Yes.
The Chief Justice. I don't see how what he is saying has anything to do with
the process. And I don't see how it's going to raise chaos. So far as the evidence is credible to every reasonable man in this country, I don't see what he's talking about. Because really, why should this particular issue, if it so happens that the Chief Justice finds credible evidence against the Electoral Commission, why should it bring chaos? Why? Why should it bring chaos? If it so happens that the Chief Justice doesn't find any credible evidence and rules that the Electoral Commissioner has nothing to answer to, and then we then find agitations going on, these unseen people start creating so much agitation within the country, yes, that can cause problems. But with the process right now, you're going through the process.
Right.
The president hasn't come and hasn't said that he would not forward the petition to the Chief Justice. He hasn't said that. We haven't found anything ultra-virus that the president is doing, or whoever is responsible to handle this thing is doing. So let the process flow.
Right.
Let it go on, and let's come to an end of it and move forward.
Very well. Let me come to Honorable Adongo here. Clearly, this, Article 1462 makes it clear that the removal of persons such as the chairperson of the EC can be done only in accordance with Article 146. So that clearly this is what the law requires or the Constitution requires. So, against this background, why would it seem out of place or out of, the ordinary that such a process has been triggered?
Well, you see, the irony of all of this is that we are here saying that the document that has been leaked, I listened carefully, where a submission was made that the document that has been, unless you hear it verbally, you won't believe it. And yet, we seem to believe in the document. We seem to be comparing a particular action, and you say it's a similar action. How did we come to that conclusion if we don't even believe the leakage that we're having? If we don't even believe what has been put in the public domain? It means we believe it. So already, the woman is being tried in the court of public opinion. It's as simple as that.
Is it allegations he says he believes, or that?
I am saying that we are arriving at the conclusion that Madame Charlotte's case is similar. And I'm asking, how did we come to that conclusion? It's because we are very our mind to what we have heard. And yet, in one breath, we've said we don't know whether this is actually the actual document that has been leaked.
I think
so. I have been very cautious not to go into those things.
Exactly, the allegations.
Yeah, but it appears,
from the onset,
that we are somehow.
You think we are prejudging the whole situation?
We are also going in to say something similar happened with somebody, and it's a similar case. Okay.
Isn't it the process we're looking at?
Because if you refer to hotel bills and all of that, and it's a similar case, then you are beginning to go into really the substance. And the question then is,
to be fair,
what would be the motive for anybody who knows that under this process, there has to be some confidentiality? Because until the president forwards this document, and until the panel decides...
Until it's done completely, it should be held in everything
so
about
once it is already in the public domain, what is the motive?
So your issue has to do with the fact that it was leaked, and that's where you're raising...
Exactly, and we are saying that we have followed keenly developments in this country. Let nobody pretend that all of a sudden we have arrived in 2017. We know and we believe that this woman has been haunted for a very long time. And so this is part of a process that has continued over a period. And we are resolute that we will resist any attempt to unduly remove that woman.
How do you intend to do that?
We will get there when we get there. We'll cross the bridge when we get there. Nobody should pretend that we are living in an environment where political hands don't play roles. We see people who are instigated to go and be claiming that all of a sudden, most of commissions or heads suddenly can't work with their staff. We heard it at Labour Commission. What happened? Almost every commission now find workers that are unable to work with the heads. And the legal processes then get triggered from there. We cannot pretend that we are living in an island. And so we want to serve notice that we have been observing the series of trends of public officers being hounded out through similar processes.
Right.
And we cannot, as a key stakeholder, keep mute over this.
Right. But on to that point that you just raised, and I think to a point that Mr. Opon raised about the actions of the EC chairperson herself leading up to this thing, looking at the Iyoko incident, for instance. Now you're looking at, you know, the tension within the institution.
Yeah,
now you have...
Yeah. As an institution, there are processes for auditing EC.
Right.
Has there been any audit outcome of EC that suggests malfeasance? Has there?
But so you're saying we should wait for an audit to happen
before? Listen, there are administrative processes.
Yes.
So if, for instance, I hear that in a conversation, there was some award of contract somewhere, probably because I'm not privy to the processes, I just assume that somebody might have, you know, done things that are untoward, and then straight away I file a petition. Can you imagine the amount of petitions we'll be filing everywhere?
But that's why the Chief Justice has to determine the prima facie case before further inquiries.
Yes, what I'm saying is that there are very sensitive state institutions. And we cannot be sitting down and be saying it's a constitution, it's a due process. We know when people have resisted due process in this country. We know it when people who have been called to answer questions by due process have had almost everybody mass up to support them. Why? Wasn't that due process? Ken Japan and Co, when they were called by same Iyoko and other institutions, what did we see in this country? Wasn't that due process? Listen, we are very, very minded of this process. Yes, we are observing this process, but at every stage of this process, we'll make our views heard.
Very well. We need to wrap up on this so that we move on to the presidential encounter.
Make a quick point.
But quickly, and then I go to Nana Fridra.
At what point, when was the EC put in place? When was she put in place?
In 2015.
2015. At what point do you realize administrative ineptitude of an individual?
But that...
Wait.
Okay.
If that person starts work, from the word go, you'll be able to determine whether that person is capable or not capable. My question is, why didn't this happen last year? Why? Why is it happening now? If that person really did not have the wherewithal to have the managerial sense and the managerial experience to be able to run the EC, why didn't they bring it up then?
But so are you saying that there's a certain time limit that they could act?
I think there's more.
Nothing like that in the Constitution is there.
I think there's more to it than meets the eye.
That was why I was raising the issues about the internal goings on in the EC itself.
Yes. And my learned friend here does not see any problem with the faceless people. If they really believe what they're saying, they should show their faces.
But Mr. Opon's basis is based on precedent.
First of all, you are counsel. You know that the rules are clear. Even where a lawyer acts without authority, that is contemptuous.
Yes.
And so I am also operating on the presumption that there is no way a lawyer, and a lawyer of his caliber, of course, I mean, we can all engage in some form of maneuvering and so on. But why would a lawyer of his caliber write to the executive, the first position in this country, and misrepresent that I'm acting for certain persons when indeed he is not? And that is where, if he is required to produce them, and the rules of our ethics permit him to produce them and he fails, I can tell you that he may not be able to bear the consequences of such an action. And that is why, though rebuttable, I am presuming that no reasonable lawyer would have written...
That is the operative word.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No reasonable lawyer.
That's the operative word.
And I'm very, very serious. Would just... This is not just deceiving any public officer. It can even amount to subversion.
Yes.
And it is a very serious matter. And so I lean on the side of caution and say that I am very sure, or well, I believe, if I should say so, that he actually had clients and he continues to have clients on whose instructions he wrote to them. Because if it turns out that we were all deceived, I will be one of the first to stand on the rooftop, probably even take a legal action against him.
Well, I'm not.
Well, yes,
I'm
but
not,
let me
I'm
move
not,
on to
I'm not
Nana
even.
Fridge right
I'm
here.
not even talking on the premise of which Lawyer Pong is talking about. I'm talking on the premise of the individuals themselves as to what is it they have to hide. Why are they instructing their lawyer to keep their names out of the petition? What is there to hide?
Well, he says
absolutely
at the
nothing.
appropriate time, he would.
Absolutely no.
Yes.
Whistleblowers are a different kettle of fish. That's why they call them whistleblowers. These aren't whistleblowers. These are petitioners, and they're claiming that they have a case. Show your face.
Counsel,
But let me move on to.
Problem with that.
Let me move on to Nana Fridge here. We need to wrap up on this, so let me hear you on this. Your last thoughts on this moving forward.
I want you to help me. No other lawyer on this table. You.
I hope I can.
What's the definition of a whistleblower?
We could refer to the Whistleblowers Act to give you what that is exactly.
Does that definition require that the person has a face in the letter, in the petition? I'd like to.
Is this a whistleblower?
I'm saying,
this is not a whistleblower.
You see,
This
I'm
doesn't
asking
fall
the
under
question.
whistleblowers.
I'm asking the question.
Please let him
I'm
go
asking
on.
the question to challenge your position, and if the answer corresponds to your position, then one knows what you're saying, and will then consider siding with you. I'm saying, can we get the proper definition of a whistleblower, and therefore what it takes? Now, let's also be truthful about the culture of victimization. If these people truly have a case and they mention their names, will they be able to go to work? Especially when the NDC is so eager to play a part in this thing. Can you imagine what will be happening at the EC offices by now? Demonstrators from foot soldiers of the NDC creating all kinds of problems. And that's why the Honorable Adongo is quick to refer to Kennedy Japon's case. Because then they'll be able to do that and then frighten these people away from work. So when the name has not been put up yet, from the position of those petitioners, why are we so eager to see them? Having said that, for me, this matter, the most important thing is that we should let the processes work and let us leave the partisan politics out of it. If you notice, I haven't even stated an MPP position on this matter, although it has been very strong on the airwaves. Our acting general secretary has spoken, and a host of other leaders have spoken. I'm not even going to touch on NPPs because that's how petty I find that partisan position that has been taken on this matter. And the fact that Madame Osei herself says that she's happy that she prefers that political parties don't get involved in this thing on the level that would divide or create a situation. That all affirms that position. Let's leave it and let the processes work. If she's going to be vindicated, such is the law. That's the value of being lawful. If she's not vindicated and she's in trouble, then such is the law. That's the value of being lawful. Let's allow law to differentiate us from the animals of the jungle. That's why we're human beings.
Very well.
Now you that's why we're constitutional.
The whistleblower. I've just pulled up the Whistleblower Act, which doesn't necessarily define it, but it's, I mean, the long title of the act says there's an act to provide for the manner in which individuals may, in the public interest, disclose information that relates to unlawful or other illegal conduct or corrupt practices of others.
That's a petitioner. That's a whistleblower.
Provide for protection against
and it goes on to
all of that.
Yes.
So what is this funny thing about a petitioner is different for a whistleblower?
Right.
And then you know, when you go into the Constitution, the things that are required of a chairperson, I think the removal or otherwise, refers to not just maybe how the person was appointed, but the administrative acts are considered in any petition to remove somebody from office. Administrative acts are considered in the constitutional provisions. That 1416.
Well, let me take some. Nana, please land for me, and then yes, I take
so
messages.
Basically, I'm saying let's leave the processes to work. I wish Madame Osei well, because it's a tough position. I also wish the petitioners were, because they better be telling us the truth.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I mean, either way, we need to. Yes.
So, bottom line is that let's let the processes work.
Very well. Now, let me take messages from viewers and listeners coming in. This says, why is President Nana Akufo-Addo, or what is President Nana Akufo-Addo's beef in this matter? The staff of EC is in a fight with their own boss, alleging she has done a number of things they find illegal. Why should the NDC raise their hairs over this matter? Has the NDC not said on rooftops that the office of the EC is independent? Is Mrs. Charlotte Osei now a member of the NDC after all? And for which reason? And this is coming in from Jamil Tiani in Wa. Good morning, Abena. The EC chair issue should be tackled with care. It should not be done, it says, at all cost. We must bear in mind that God Almighty is the one that ends tools and ends skins. Okay, so this is an interesting dimension coming in here. God Almighty is the one that ends tools and ends skins a kin. No one can stop the mind of God. Yes. EC chairperson was there, and God made another president. So you can bring anyone, but the will of God will come to pass, period. Amen.
Full stop.
Yes. The NPP shouldn't think if they put their choice in the Electoral Commission, that won't prevent them from leaving office in 2020. And this is Lollipop from WA. The NPP are doing everything to fix one of their members there to protect them in election 2020, but they lie bad. This is Tete from Somenya. And this one coming in from Ampedu in Westland says, I don't understand why the NDC is blaming the NPP for being behind the petition to remove the EC boss. This is sheer mischief. The NDC continues this way and opposition will be yours forever. Good morning. Please, it's clear from the Anas case that there must be a known person as the petitioner. If this floodgate is open, then we must expect more of such faceless and baseless allegations which will waste our time. In any case, if the concerned staff of the EC believe they have a good case, why hide their identities? He who seeks equity must come with clean hands. And this is Stephen Kinsley in Bibiani. From Bright Kwame, he says, Kotoko says, NPP has started, he says, their hatchet job again, using their surrogates with their avowed aim to see the EC boss removed from office. We have all witnessed how crafty they were removing their party chairman, Paul Afoko, including the officials like Kwabene Japan and all. He says, the ground is yet to be seen ignited to start running. Competent people indeed. Evans says, I'm highly disappointed in the minority leadership for insinuating as though the petition filed against the EC boss is influenced by the presidency. At any rate, the EC boss, per the current trends of our elections, cannot manipulate or skew election results to favor or disfavor anyone. The minority should wake up to the reality of the unprecedented failure. This is Kwesi Evans. And let me take the last one and go back to the panel. It seems we use the English language anyhow, because if we are civilized people, how can we allude faceless to the petitioners in the EC boss case when a full-faced council sent a petition to the president of Ghana? He says the NDC press conference in this case is to drag us into the realm of absurdities, depicting a notion that they appointed Charlotte Osei and that she's untouchable. For posterity's sake, this bad fate shouldn't be countenanced by all and sundry. NDC, it says, must be treated with utmost contempt. I think we can pull the brakes here and then return to the panel. And this time we're going to look at Mr. Opon. You want to have another bite.
It appears the growing evidence is that where a person appoints the chairman of Electoral Commission, that person doesn't usually win the election. It happened in Nigeria. It has happened like twice in this country. So if anybody is thinking of
so nobody should be quick to remove their point. Okay, well, that is according to Mr. Opon's conspiracy theory there. Well, we're moving on to look at the presidential encounter with the media, which occurred earlier on in the week on Tuesday. And I would want Mr. Jan to start us off with that one. Let's look at the format. You know, the president, on some issues, for instance, referred questions to some ministers present and the vice president. Now, some people have lauded the president for this approach, saying that, well, he didn't want to take the spotlight alone, he shared the spotlight. Others have also said that, yes, he may have, decided to share the spotlight, but it demonstrated a certain lack of depth in the, issues or goings on in the various sectors. And, so there's this mixed reaction. I want to know what you think of this, and indeed, if it matters at all, what approach he took. But before you come in to answer that, let's take a listen to the president, briefly, on Tuesday when he was addressing or when he met with the media.
The encounter with the president gave him the opportunity to take stock of the first 6 months of his administration and also offer himself for media scrutiny. President Akufo-Addo was confident government is on the right track with policies to improve living conditions of the people.
That the success or otherwise of my administration will be judged largely on job creation. I launched the National Entrepreneurship and Innovations Plan, which is an innovative scheme under the Business Development Ministry to help startups at the difficult early stages of setting up businesses.
On Galamsey, the president reiterated his resolve to end the menace.
This phenomenon threatens the future of our nation. I believe that the time has come to do something about it. And within the confines of the law, what is acceptable behavior by governments, I intend to mobilize all the resources that government has at its disposal to bring this phenomenon to an end.
The media engagement, according to organizers, is the first of 2 within the year.
Okay, so that was a brief portion of the president's encounter with the media, and we'll be looking at how that went and some specific sectors he touched on. So, Mr. Jantua, back to the question here about the format. About the format of it. Mr. Jantua.
The president has a government, doesn't he?
Yes.
He's put a government in place, hasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
He is the head of the government. In terms of responsibility of running this country, is not only on the head of the president, but is also on the head of the people he's elected to run the different institutions. So I don't have any problem with the format. In fact, I would have expected that format.
Mm-hmm.
He only, well, I don't think he only, but he gets information from the different institutions at cabinet. And sometimes, yes, I'm sure he interacts with his ministers from time to time. There's no way he would know every little minute detail of every government institution or every ministry. He would have to be advised, and he would have to be given information as to what is going on in the different ministries. And so, with regards to the format, I think it was right. I think it was right for him to refer it to the ministers in the different organizations if he felt the question needed real interrogation and he wouldn't be able to give that kind of in-depth interrogation. Hand it over to the vice president, the minister responsible. I don't see a problem with that format that we use.
Okay, very well. I think we can move on to the substance of the issues. The format was just to, have your view on that. But really, we could start off looking at the Office of the Special Prosecutor. And I'll start with the Honorable Adongo because you are in Parliament, and the recent turn of events happened in Parliament. Quite interesting because the President, when he was addressing the media, seemed optimistic that, the bill for the establishment of the Office of the Special Prosecutor would be, laid before Parliament, and indeed called for a speedy or expeditious passage of the bill. And then a couple of days later, we hear that, it's been the Constitutional, Legal Affairs and Parliamentary Committee had, said that they needed to waive the thing about the certificate of urgency under which the bill was brought. And so now, where are we on this process? It seems it's come to a halt somewhat. Clearly, a disappointing situation here for the president. But my concern is, how did we get to this point? Because the Speaker had ruled on this matter when it came before the plenary in the chamber, didn't it? tell us exactly what happened with this.
Well, I think there's no disappointment, really. If you understand the position of Parliament on this matter, it is to deepen consultation. It is to ensure that there is adequate time to look at all the entire document and to look at all the clauses in a way that we will come up with a better legislation. And so when it was pushed through under a certificate of agency, you have to justify why there has to be that agency. And it was referred to the Parliamentary Constitutional Legal, committee. Now, when it was to be taken the second time, the deputy ranking member on the committee, Honorable Dr. Ayine, raised the point that even the committee members didn't have copies. They hadn't even seen the bill. And therefore, they could not be speaking to a bill that they haven't even seen. And the majority leader made a point that when the document arrived and it was referred, they had made some copies. But unfortunately, the fire incident got the document trapped in his office. And that is the reason the committee members didn't have. And he had instructed that a specific number be made available to that committee. So that was the first point. Then when it was brought, the committee then met and concluded that there were very serious issues in the bill, and therefore, in their view, they were recommended to the House that it should be taken through the normal process. It hasn't been stalled, it hasn't been stopped. There is a difference between passing a bill through a certificate of agency and passing it through a normal process. What normal process does is that it then gives you an opportunity to engage stakeholders. It then gives you an opportunity to have broader consultation. It then gives you an opportunity to have an in-depth look at the law, so that in the end, unintended, consequences of that law. I do
appreciate that, but the reason why I raised the thing about the disappointment is the fact that, you know, this very issue came up. Like you said, Honorable Dominic Ayine raised the issue about the fact that it hadn't been gazetted for that purpose. Exactly. And then the majority, led by Honorable Osei Chairman vehemently insisted that indeed it is coming under a bill of certificates of agency, and so that requirement was not to be complied with. And the Speaker ruled on that, with upholding the position of the majority. So isn't it quite intriguing that afterwards you now have the committee, the Legal and Constitutional Committee, now raising this again?
No, I think the Speaker had referred to the committee. That committee is the Speaker's own committee. And the Speaker's committee comes with a recommendation advising him that, look, we have looked at what you have said. We have looked at it as a committee you asked us to work on, and this is our advice. So the Speaker then feels that his team has done a good job, and they have now informed him appropriately based on the body of information that they have. And as a House, he feels there's a need to take a second look at it. I think that is a very fair description of what happened. Okay. Now, the Speaker, if he admitted a bill under a certificate of agency, the committee would come back and probably say, yes, we felt that we had to go with it the way you said, but we have looked at the issues and said, look, it won't serve the purpose that you want us to work on. And therefore, we were coming with a recommendation. If it pleases you, you can look at it. Okay. It is not an imposition on the Speaker, but it is for the Speaker to consider and for the House to consider the whole report. And having gone through the committees before, we found reason to let it go through the normal process. Now, I'm going back again on this because I think the education is important here. Because looking at your standing orders, or standing order 119 says, and I'm reading here, that where it is determined and certified by the appropriate committee of the House, appointed in the behalf that a particular bill is of an urgent nature, that bill may be introduced without publication. Copies of the bill shall be distributed to members and may be taken through all its stages in one day. Now, reading this and applying it to what happened, I get the sense that the process was reversed somewhat. I'm not sure, just because the argument came up in Parliament, in plenary session. Then the Speaker made a ruling on it that yes, we can go ahead, pass it under a bill of, under a certificate of urgency. And then the committee now comes back to say this. But reading this, it's as if the committee is supposed to give that recommendation first before it goes. I don't know, but that's the sense I'm getting. Correct me if I'm wrong. The issue is that at any time in the process, the Speaker has the right to vary our standing orders.
Okay.
When he feels that it is necessary to achieve a certain end, the Speaker can vary our standing orders. In fact, in some instances, a member can actually move a motion to suspend some of the standing orders in order to allow a process to take a speedier conclusion.
Right.
So once the Speaker ruled, if the committee had come back, after the committee came back, if the Speaker still felt that the wisdom of the committee will not serve the purpose, he still could have
gone back to
yeah,
his
he has
decision.
already ruled that we should go ahead under a certificate of agency. But having listened and looked at the report, he found that it is proper for us to go through the full length. And so it still can be worked on much faster, but at least it will give room for better consultation.
Right.
Because this is a bill that underpins a lot of things. This is a bill that you need to ensure doesn't have that overarching, what do you call it, conflict with other similar institutions. IOCO and the rest have certain mandate. And if you look at the bill, there are portions that are close to what IOCO is doing. So we need to iron all of that. We need to make sure that at the end of the day, we navigate a proper process to get a bill that will serve. What is the sense in rushing through a bill only to finish and realize that we have a bad law on our hands?
Okay.
And so that is the wisdom with which the Speaker gave the ruling, that it should be allowed to go through the full process. So it hasn't been stalled, but it's just that it will go through a normal process.
Right. And one last point to clarify for me, and indeed I think viewers and listeners here, so that when you say it's to be subjected to wider consultation or what, it's within Parliament, not outside?
No, in fact, when a bill is going through a normal process, you can decide to engage even consultants who can take the committee through a proper understanding of that particular bill. What is the intent of that bill? What exactly does this bill? So you can have couples of workshops, you can have couples of engagement with different sections to see how they intend this law to work, whether or not they find anything wrong with the work. So that process is a deepening process.
Right.
So you have, it's not purely limited. In fact, you could have other interest groups, civil society organizations who will say, look, we want to sponsor a dialogue on this bill, and we want to bring other key stakeholders to come together and brainstorm on this bill. So at the end of the day, you open that bill up to a process that enriches so by the time a report then comes to the floor, to plenary, we have quite a lot of information and then it reduces the back and forth, and then it also reduces the risk that the law may not operate for long, because then people will find some loopholes, and then and so all of that. So all of that is meant to enrich the process.
Whole process. Very well. Thank you for that education there, Mr. Paul. Let me come back to you here. Listening to Honorable Adongo, I get the sense that yes, it's to give opportunity for wider consultation and all. But I do remember, and the reason why I was going on and on about this, because I needed that clarity because I was struggling with this issue, because the AG's department or the AG's office did indeed have some stakeholder consultations where several people from different, sectors participated, to the extent that we even had jurists coming from the UK to, prefer, opinions and everything on this bill. So then the question is, if it's to subject the bill to wider consultations, are we saying that the previous one we did was not adequate, and what are we looking at adding, or what do we anticipate to get moving forward? What could change?
Well, thank you. Well, I fully support the proposition by Parliament that they themselves also have a duty, at least to their constituents, the people of Ghana, to go deep to their constituents. It's something that we have all advocated for over time. That it appears that in some instances, the people are not even informed that we are going to pass this law in your name. And there are times where even laws are passed and nobody even seems to know. Even, you remember, there was one of these election cases, I think one of the Abu Ramadan cases also, where even the Supreme Court said that there was no LI, a certain LI or CI in existence. Parliament came out to say that we had actually passed that law. So if this can happen, And of course, I'm sure if the processes of consultation had involved judges, those who are going to apply the law, first those in whose name the law is made, those who are going to apply it, they will all bring their input. But that shouldn't be at the level of the executive alone. They will have theirs to do. But when it comes to Parliament, there'll be nothing wrong with them even inviting stakeholders to Parliament to express their opinion on various sections, because we are those who are going to be affected by it. But otherwise, generally, I really don't see much about a special prosecutor, in my view. I mean, I have a totally different view about it, especially if all he's going to do is to prosecute in a criminal proceedings. I don't really see the necessity for it, with all due respect. We already have institutions that are mandated. They are trained from the police, the YOCO, national security, so up to the level of the Attorney General's Department, the level of the Attorney General's Department itself. I think that we can still prosecute these matters. And in any case, my preference is for civil proceedings. The situation where people, especially some politicians or public officers, are convicted after stealing our money, and I don't want to glorify it with the word corruption. Stealing, pure stealing. They steal our money. They are giving, let's say, 3 years, 4 years. Somebody will then, for some reason, cause them to be released even before they finish serving their term. They have invested the money. They come out. They are even giving further positions, which they will even come into more higher sums. If you like, higher sums. And they spend it. We don't trace it. And all we do is to take them to prison. I'm not discounting the importance of prison. No. In this respect, it's important. But I would have wished that even our priority, because it's more difficult to trace these monies than to just cause a person to be in prison. And that is where I thought, but from just the brief cursory look at the bill that I've seen, I think that is not even much of our priority, because you see, when it comes to prosecution, my position is that we still have competent people at the Attorney General's Department who will do it. And the issue about executive controlling the Attorney General, I say that if you are a lawyer and you are, let's say, the Attorney General, and you allow a politician to apply politics to influence your professional decision, you come back to the bar.
This is a fact, isn't it?
It's not a fact,
but it's a reality. We do see these things.
No, please.
What happened with the judges?
No, please.
What happened with the judges?
No, please, let me say it. Let me say it. Let me say this.
Carry on.
Let me say this. If your colleague judge, appointed by president, can look into the eyes of for example, the so-called Muntaka case, 2 judges told President Mills, you were wrong. You didn't have the power to constitute a committee to look into this matter. It was purely for the civil service. Why can't you, another lawyer, also appointed by a president, but who doesn't pay you? We shouldn't forget that the fact that the president appoints you doesn't mean that he is even your employer.
But well, yes,
so
maybe
the point I'm
making, who can do that. But
in any case, this special prosecutor eventually will be given a warrant of appointment by the president. What I'm saying is it depends on each and every personality appointed to a public office. It doesn't matter who appoints you. So if the only reason is that, oh, let's insulate him from the clutches of the executive, I'm saying that angels will come down, be appointed to that position. If they forget that they are angels, they will be corrupted and they will do the bidding of that executive. The foremost duty of you as a lawyer, it is to the Constitution and the people of Ghana. And if you think, it has happened before, Amidu and Co have done it, if you think that a particular decision you have taken as a lawyer conflicts with that of the politician, who though may be a lawyer, but will rather be influenced by political consideration, the best thing for you to forget about the so-called consideration of no curfew and resign. Right. You have your integrity intact. When you resign, you come back to the bar and you will not be looking over your shoulders and think about what people are saying about you. You are a lawyer first. So that, I mean, and you have taken an oath.
You are espousing the ideal situation, perhaps. But
the law is ideal. The law makes prescriptions for what is ideal. We all have to aspire to doing what is ideal. In any case, the people now believe that the law even follows society. Then society also somehow also follows the law. It's shaped by the law. If you are a lawyer and once again you forget that when you were being called to the bar, you held the Bible or any other emblem or symbol that you believe in and swore in the name of God that you are only going to pursue what is right. And you think that a political decision which you believe or reasonably believe is not the right position, and yet you allow yourself to be influenced because I will lose your job or you lose your job, then you are not fit to be the lawyer that should be the Attorney General of this country.
Yeah, why are you saying it doesn't happen?
No, I'm saying I'm saying that if it happens, it is not right.
Yes,
and we are talking about what is right. So if we want more people to be employed at the Attorney General's department and to be well or better resourced, let's talk about that.
But quickly on this, you know, there's the other school of thought that, okay, instead of perhaps pursuing this office of the special prosecutor for the reasons you are espousing here, of course there are people who share in your view as well. They're saying perhaps, well, let's just have a certain arrangement where there are two heads, if you like, in there. The person in charge for the criminal prosecutions and the one to do the
we have the
civil.
DPP.
So they have it exactly. You think that should be?
We have the DPP.
That's what should be maintained.
This should be maintained. We have the DPP. The DPP is and ought to be independent. I mean, that small constitutional provision that the Attorney General shall be the initiator of proceedings. Let's know that the Attorney General's position is an institution. That is why when there is a transition and there is no Attorney General, some people have tried to raise the issue and say, since there is no Attorney General, I cannot be prosecuted. The courts have held consistently that the Attorney General is an institution. And it is not vested just one person, so that in her absence, no prosecutions can be, the state cannot even defend itself. Let us look at it in the nature of the embodiment of an institution. And because Nana Akufo-Addo, the president, has ever been an Attorney General. I'm not very sure that if these same allegations were to be made, he would have supported it, because maybe he would have said that he prosecuted cases based on his integrity as a lawyer. So when we throw these things out, we are only smearing our institution.
Right. Okay.
So let me just, in conclusion, I'm just saying that.
In conclusion, 30 seconds.
Finally. All that I'm saying is that let us rather strengthen the institution.
As
the Attorney General's department are already crying. You see, most cases, we create parallel institutions and there will only be conflict.
Which is what Honorable raised here, saying that looking at the bill, you need to ensure that you streamline it so that you don't have overlaps in here.
That's
looking at
very
EOP and all of that. Very well.
Very important.
Let me move on.
We usually create new ones, prefer them as if you got a new wife, and the one you started with doesn't matter anymore.
This analogy of yours. Let me go on to Mr. Jantwa. Mr. Jantwa, what has happened here? And quickly, I'm going to Nana Frida because you had a bite earlier on, but I need you to, tell me your candid opinion of what has happened with this process. It's good. Honorable Adongo said that it's not to stall the process, it's only to make the process better, to ensure a better product in the final analysis. But you do agree, wouldn't you, or you would agree that this occurrence is quite unusual, given the kind of parliamentary democracy we have, and looking at the current majority in Parliament, you would have expected that the tradition of, things going through, the executive having its way, would have played out here as well. Now, you have a committee, the Legal and the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee, an 18-member committee, right, Honourable? And it's dominated by the majority. Having come back with this, and again, I cited the context about the president when he met the media, making it seem like, yes, there was this bill that would be laid before Parliament and it would be quickly passed and all. And that's why I brought in the issue about the disappointment. Now, looking at what has happened, are we beginning to see perhaps a shift in what we have come to know the parliamentary democracy to be, or that there are some underlying factors that we are yet to become apparent?
But before you come, if I could just clarify.
Sure.
Normally what you see at plenary, where you probably think that we disagree on almost everything, is not true. At the committee level, we do a very professional job. In fact, we try as much as possible to reach a consensus at the committee level.
Yes.
So when there's a majority decision at the committee level, it is not a comfortable.
So it's not
a comfortable development.
Yeah, right.
So we don't, because we don't want to suggest that we were not able to agree You know, so in instances where we even have majority decision, sometimes the report delays because we still want to see how we can.
So consensus is overriding thing. You don't necessarily look at
so
majority.
The numbers, they really doesn't count that much. It is about what the committee, in their own wisdom and with the body of information they have, feel is the best course.
That's interesting. And I mean, I would be happy to be seeing more of these things happening, seriously. But to Mr. Jantua, at least that perception is there. And speak to that for me.
Abner, we have separation of powers in this country, don't we? Yeah. The executive would wish, the executive would wish that this bill would run through Parliament quickly.
The president actually called for, make sure you pass this.
But the president doesn't have overall rule over Parliament.
Not at all. He doesn't have.
Doesn't have. So based on what Parliament thinks is what would happen. Now, I have a copy of the bill in my hand here. It's quite a lengthy bill. I've been reading one or two things in it, and let me give you an example. Independence of the office. And it says, and I'll go to clause 5, governing body of the office. It says, 1, clause 5.1, the governing body of the office is a board consisting of A, special prosecutor, B, the deputy special prosecutor, C, the auditor general, D, one representative of the Ghana Police Service not below the rank of Assistant Commissioner of Police, E, one lawyer in private practice with at least 10 years experience nominated by the Ghana Bar Association, F, the Chief Executive Officer of the Financial Intelligence Center, G, one representative of the Commission of Human Rights and Administrative Justice not below the rank of a director, H, one person with background in intelligence and not below the rank of director nominated by the minister responsible for national security, and I, one other person who is a female. Where is exactly? Where is the attorney?
And they had to come in last.
Where is the Attorney General in all this?
But that's a whole idea. No, that's a whole idea.
Can I finish?
Yes.
Can I finish? Can I finish? So, if Parliament, I'm not even talking about the Attorney General bit. I just brought that up because I saw it missing.
Right.
If Parliament feels that they will need to debate on this, obviously they will need time. And they determine what time they need to debate on any bill
in the interest
whatsoever.
Of good
now,
laws.
this bill to even come out slightly different from what we're seeing.
Exactly.
Totally. Or dramatically different.
Even apart from the bill, once the bill is put into law, the regulations also need to be tacked and under it. That is a process. I share Yao's point. I don't think a special prosecutor is necessary. Why? Let's decouple the Minister of Justice from Attorney General's department. Simple.
Well, you depart from him then.
Well, that is his. He has set his point.
I think it's just
that is his point, and this is my point.
Yeah, that's it, yes.
That's my point.
Yes, fantastic.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why you have the prosecutor in the defense in any case. And I believe that if we decouple it, a lot of the things that Yao has said, I mean, we can handle corruption issues in this country if the will is there. If the will is there.
And how do you get the will there?
And if that will...
For how many years under 1992 Constitution?
If that will has political backing, it will happen. Right? We've put in a special prosecutor. First 2, 3, 4, 5 cases goes through. If that political will isn't there, where we are standing here today, you'll still be standing here. You'll still be standing here.
But I think one of the things that is in the bill is, they try to ensure that the office, the person to hold the office would have, the tenure
12 years.
Overlap.
They must have
12
years.
So it's not going to be in like the appointing authority, the same tenure, that kind of thing. So you overlap. You get into another era of a different government. Yes, I think that it's in there.
I know it is there, but having to...
Okay, so that was the sarcastic air.
You said it for me.
Hand theory.
You said it for me.
By that, you shoot down your own argument.
Let me finish.
Shoot down your own argument.
Let me finish. When it comes to your turn, you agree. In context.
Okay, carry
in context.
But
now, this is where it's also important with regards to Parliament's role, because also in Section 12, Clause 2, it says the Attorney General shall nominate a person qualified for appointment as special prosecutor by the President, subject to the approval of the majority of all members of Parliament. So that gives Parliament a huge role in this bill. And so if they need time to do what they have to do, nobody should put pressure on them. Let them come up with an act that everybody would be able to assent to it,
and it
can act. It can be operational. Regulations that go with it are operational, and it can put people who are corrupt in prison or punish them, period.
Great. I mean, I find what Honorable Adongo said about the consensus way of
but they
decision making in the committee, I find it very instructive, and that's useful.
They do,
because the perception out there is it's the numbers, it's the numbers.
Yeah, but they create
so that exactly. So that's what But so let's get it straight. There's consensus behind the scenes. It's not always that.
Normally,
but let me go
when
to
we disagree and we'll come to the floor. Then that is where you have all the rancor.
Right.
But when we agree, it means that everybody's interests would have been properly indicated, and there will be a professional document. So when you come, the debate is a little better. But when you disagree, okay, then let's go to the floor.
Okay. Let me go on
before you go on. I have experience.
Quickly, I need to go to
I have experience. I have experience of working with committees in Parliament, and I must admit what Honourable is saying is very true. You know, they come to consensus, they ask certain questions. And the reason why I have experience is because I have to justify the PIAC report anytime we bring it out to the select committee.
So that's useful. Thank you very much. Now let me go to Nana. Nana, I would want you to, I know you say you're not a legal person, but it's still, I mean, it's a topical issue we're looking at.
But I'm
what has that got to do with this?
This whole issue about the office of the special prosecutor, has,
do you need it?
It seems to be a difficult hurdle in terms of Article 88, which makes provision for the office of the AGs. And so people have called for the fact, and indeed that Article 88 falls under Chapter 8, which whole chapter is an entrenched chapter of the Constitution, which would require a referendum if we're going to make any amendments to that. And so you have a bill that is before Parliament seeking to, necessarily make some amendments to the Article 88, which is where the AG derives, its authority and all. How, moving forward, what do you make of this argument that, yes, perhaps we need that referendum to happen before this, or let's take it easy, let's observe, all the requirements for the amendment of the Constitution before we actually carry on?
This morning I've quoted from Shakespeare. I quoted Mark Antony, or I referred to Mark Antony. Let me now come to Ghana and quote from Osofo-Dazi and refer specifically to Super Odi, when he said, "Show me your friend and I'll tell you who you are." First of all, there's a certain sentiment that was expressed off-air by Mr. Jantwa. I want to share in that sentiment.
Off-air. He said
off-air.
That's why I haven't mentioned the sentiment. I just want to refer to it.
What you're going to say is a sharing of what
indirectly.
No, in other words, here, what he wanted to do, me too, I want to do.
Okay.
Now, first of all, I thought we were talking about that wonderful event at the Jubilee House where the president met the press and said,
she narrowed it down.
I narrowed it down to this, yes, because we don't have time.
I don't want that to go.
You see, in my field of communication, communication is my field. So when you talked about the format, I was so happy.
Okay, so briefly do that, and then please let's look at this, because we have other sectors we need to look at.
I have no problem. I'm just
we need to move on to the economy.
But no, I'll leave the format out there.
Okay,
on the
great.
Specific matter of the special prosecutor, first of all, I don't know the article you quoted, I don't know it thoroughly, but listening to you and listening to arguments that have been posited since this matter was raised, you see, where did this emanate from? There was a reference to the fact that laws are made for, by man for man, no? Lawyer Yao mentioned the fact that...
The law is to shape society.
And sometimes it actually comes from what is going on at a particular point. There is a culture thing. And if that is the case, who are we? And therefore, why would an idea of this thought, of this nature, come up as a political argument to solve a canker in our system? Do we not politicize corruption? And is corruption itself not a canker in our society? Has it not slowed us down? Is there a solution out there? Is that solution embedded in the position of Attorney General and Minister of Justice? Or can it be carved out in order to be effective and give it a name as Office of the Special Prosecutor? I think those are the questions that the NPP sought to answer in this proposal that the President is pushing. The idea, and you see, I've tried to pick out his quotation. You know, he actually spent only 4 sentences on this matter at the press event. And it reads, the portions that I picked out, it says, when it comes to wrongdoers of the kind that indeed caused our nation the greatest harm, corrupt public officials, I'm glad to say that the Office of the Special Prosecutor will be with us shortly. In that sentence, he deals with what I just raised, that matter that has been eating us for a while. And this is a solution. That's what he's suggesting by this statement. When you push it, that's what he's suggesting. That we've had this problem. Wrongdoers, public officials, whether they're politicians or bureaucrats, go to all these Auditor General reports of the past. Look at what's been happening to us. And the you know, I don't know if you noticed, but the NDC, in ways of trying to combat their perspective, or trying to deal with their perspective of how to combat corruption and things like that, and instead of dealing with this specifically, they kept saying something. I don't know if you picked that up. They kept always referring to the bureaucrats in public service, the civil servants, and how they are the ones who undermine things. They kept saying that a lot for the last 8 years. I don't know if you picked, especially after the second year. I picked that up. They kept saying that. Every time you accuse them of corruption, then they pushed it onto. Now we're saying that we need to solve this because we know that there's the politician problem and there's the bureaucrat problem, the civil servants problem. So the President refers to that. And then there was talk about the processes that you raised and whether we should open it up to the public. And you yourself also referred to the fact that already some of that has happened. You notice that the President also refers to that. And he says this is one of the 4 sentences. He says, we all, in and out of Parliament, should take an interest and help with the rapid passage of the bill, obviously. So I don't think that he's the last person to stifle thought and speech. And he's obviously presented himself as the first person to encourage us to participate in it. But in the process, we must hurry up because there's a fun. Look, when you go into the public thing, people are asking, why aren't you people prosecuting these NDC people who committed it? And the President is saying, depoliticize it. Because why? If we do what Lawyer Yao and Lawyer Kwame are saying, what we end up doing is actually going to allow people to play into the politicization, and therefore they'll come up with terms like witch hunting and all that.
But you see, the thing is, I mean,
so we need to get away from that.
How sure are we that we are not going to fall into the same?
Well, that's where my next,
which is
that's
because
where my
there
next,
are several institutions.
Yes, that's where
already.
my next problem comes.
Yes.
And it's with the media.
What has the media done now?
Very good. You see how quickly they start asking questions. Yeah, or not, yes. And in fact, in this case, it's what they have not done. And they keep not doing things which will help us. in as much as
in some cases,
in quite a few cases.
Like what?
You see, one of the things that, you know, and let me just make a reference to the Honorable Adongo's point about the consensus that Parliament builds. I'm using that to let you know that me too, I'm part of the media, because I, in another body, same name and thing, I wear a cap that works with Parliament. In the media, there are shortcomings when it comes to some aspects of media work. The proposal for special prosecutor got hints of either rejection or rebuttal or questionings and blah, 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 right from the beginning. Has the media carried this and discussed it enough? No.
Really?
It's
been
Where?
on the front burner
for how long?
The longest
Where?
time.
Where? No, show me. If I'm wrong, I'll withdraw. Show me.
Oh, you need to
such
withdraw
that the public understands what we are talking about.
And that's why the president feels the need to reiterate when he met with the media that very soon it's going to come. And then so and so is happening. Because
before he said that, did we not know that?
It's on the front burner.
Before he said that, did we not know that? The last time I saw a piece in the media about this special prosecutor thing was when the Attorney General met with some people. And she made that statement.
No, even with
Every
Parliament,
time
they saw this for the first time. They were, I am
exactly.
seeing it.
Oh, but
for
you're
the
not
first
being
time.
fair to my argument. You're not being fair to my argument.
I'm just linking it to it, so that at least, if the media doesn't have the information.
Exactly. How do you
But you see, I'm saying that the media should be asking why they don't have the information. The media should be asking experts. You see, a lot of these things, there's an argument that special prosecutors, the job is already exists. So if the media wants to tickle out this so that people can form their thoughts, and for those who are against it, they will be stronger
not
in
again,
their position.
but not in favor. Doesn't mean
Okay.
But
you get my point, though. Those who are not in favor of it and all that, everybody's view will be projected such that by the time it forms, and I believe it will form, by the time it takes form and is beginning to, people will have reference points on the pros and cons and will be able to act. That is why he says that we should all be a part of this. So for me, the media has a major shortcoming on that score. From now till when it gets, it would be great if there's a total breakdown of all the steps and what is going on. It would be nice to, you see, because if we don't do that, when now the call for the president and his team to chase money that's been taken away or stolen, to go with the house words, then people will not now say, you see these people, they instead of doing their work, they are targeting NDC people. We want to get away from that.
Very well.
Who's to say, and I knock on wood, and I'm who's to say that some MPP people too will not commit a crime? You know what I'm saying? So if we have a system there, and that's why the president calls for depoliticizing it.
It's when we begin to see the prosecution of public officials when their government is still in office.
Thank you.
That people will now begin to see that,
and
yes,
so
that is why, because they're not to which hands.
Very good.
But if you wait for the government to go out of office, then you now begin to raise questions. That's where the questions come in.
Very good. Yes. But you see, on that score, when you now have a position that we can comfortably and clearly, because it's law and everything, depoliticize the position, then it's easier for us to proceed and even have a sitting government official, if there's a problem, and I pray in this year, in this the terms that the NPP is going to have, that we will not have that problem. And we'll be tied any NPP person who goes to do that. Not only will the special prosecutor come after you, the rest of us will, because we want a clean Akufo-Addo government. Now, when all this has happened, you want a body that will be able to prosecute well, and everybody goes home saying the law has worked.
Very well. On that note, we'll take a break. Quick break. When we come back, Mr. Opon, I'd want you to touch on the referendum part and briefly, and then we move on to the economy. Viewers and listeners, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back, and then we have Mr. Opon and Honorable Adongo touch on this and wrap up for us, and then we move on to the economy. Stay tuned. On our Facebook page and on GhanaWeb.com. I will go back to the panel, in fact, Mr. Opon specifically, to look at the issue I raised just before the break, which is looking at the argument for a referendum in order to get on with the office, the establishment or the passing of a bill for the establishment of the office of the special prosecutor. Mr. Opon, quickly, let's have that clarification there.
All right, well, thank you. Well, you know, the Constitution itself expressly provides for procedure by which a portion of the Constitution may be amended. All right, and that is provided. And looking at even the memorandum, the bill, which my senior has graciously offered me, I can't see that. But it's also because when you look at Clause 4, which if passed becomes a section, 2 says, subject to Clause 4 of Article 88 of the Constitution, the office is for the purposes of this Act authorized by the Attorney General to initiate and conduct the prosecution of corruption and corruption-related offenses specified in this Act. Clause 4 of 88 says, all offenses prosecuted in the name of the Republic of Ghana shall be at the suit of the Attorney General or any other person authorized by him in accordance with law. First of all, the word subject or the phrase subject to have been interpreted to mean that anything else that follows must be subservient to that to which it is subject.
Making the Constitution, obviously.
Yes, obviously. So what it means is that this provision is not even being amended. Right. So it will also mean that even where the special prosecutor takes up the job and prosecutes, it will still be it will still be at the instance of the Attorney General. So that is being done already. The police prosecute, Senate court go. They will not ask whether you are liable or you are guilty. That is criminal prosecution. And all these persons, Yoko sometimes, but they may not have the prosecutorial powers. But when you put this together, we say that it is at the instance or at the suit of the Attorney General. If the special prosecutor's prosecutions are also going to be at the suit of the Attorney General, and the Attorney General already has the powers to authorize any other person, why do we need an act to now authorize the Attorney General when she is already authorized by the Constitution? So I think we need to just have a second, well, that's my opinion, that first of all, respectfully, I don't think that any useful purpose will be served, respectfully, for want of a more dignified word. But the point is, these same elaborate, very fine propositions, setting up a board and all that, we can in a way refine them and factor them into the work of the Attorney General's department. If it becomes lucrative enough, a lot of lawyers will and you know, a person doesn't have to be an employee of the Attorney General's department to be assigned a job to do. Elsewhere in the US and so on, they assign some cases to lawyers, they deal with the case, they wash off their hands, they get appropriate remuneration, or even sometimes when it involves corruption cases. Some lawyers will even decide to do it for free because their taxes are what have been stolen.
And indeed here we do have, with the Law Officers Act 1974, NRCD 279, it permits 3 categories of people to perform any of the functions vested by an enactment in the Attorney General. And you're looking at state attorneys, public prosecutors, and any other public officer, if so authorized by the Attorney General. So it's actually provided.
And so I think that. But have you referred to the politics of this matter?
Well, we have what we call the political economy of
the socio-political situation we find ourselves in, where when you have to prosecute Nana Fredia, let me use the Honorable because he and I and Kwame, of course,
we are political.
The 3 of us are the party people. Now, immediately they say prosecute Nana Fredia, and Kwame will be saying, yeah, because he's NPP and he's CPP. Honorable will say, yeah, because I'm NPP. As opposed to dealing with the matter of this, really take this thing from the table.
If we are going to always then go by everything that the public will say, nothing can be done.
But in any case, you're also the same person who said that certain things are done by law because of the culture that exists.
We already have it.
Right now, you see, but in our case, the problem has become, alongside this law, is the law of politics. out there in the public. That says that when you do it to me, you've witch hunted me.
There's another way.
We've just talked about Madam
Charlotte for me, and
look at how
it's okay. But the point is that is
economy.
In the wisdom of the people of Ghana, this power has already been given, and we recognize that she alone, for our current purpose, cannot perform it. So she may assign it to other people. So I'm saying that you do not need. I can imagine how much we are spending on training, and by the time we finish getting this, how much money? Those monies could have been applied to enhance the training of other people.
Very well, Mr. Paul. Honorable Adongo, come in before then I take messages.
I didn't talk about the substance of this. I and a few other colleagues share the same view as a lawyer has just rightly said. We feel that this bill is trying to set up a body that will be conducting a delegated responsibility. That responsibility is already entrusted to the Attorney General. We do agree that there's a problem of corruption and how to deal with it. But is this vehicle the appropriate solution? You know, so we feel that by just adding the word independent really doesn't make it independent. Because at the end of the day, you are working at the instructions of an Attorney General. You know, the debate over the years, yes, basically. I mean, if you look at the debate over the years, the debate has been even to, I remember a couple of years back, the PPP candidate, was talking about decoupling Attorney General from
that has been
the
a
justice, and then to make sure
issue.
that, what do you call it, you have an Attorney General that is more professional,
all the parties
non-political and all of that. But the challenge has been because the clause is entrenched. And so you still have to go back to the people to get a mandate to do it. So to be able to navigate that clause, this law is trying to, you know, more or less try and navigate that difficulty of going for a referendum in order to make the amendment. Do we think that it will really serve the purpose? To me, no.
You don't think so?
Because at the end of the day, it will still come down to how independent this body is going to be.
Very well,
but you see that even in this statement, there's politics.
Let me take some messages.
The point that question whether
let me bring in the viewers and listeners. This is Michael Amini in the UK. He says that he's asking, why is the minority making a huge, it says causing a huge uproar about the creation of the Office of the Special Prosecutor? If the minority knows their hands are clean when they were in power, then why are they entertaining fear and casting doubt of the neutrality and the duplication of duties of the Special Prosecutor? Kwesi Hayford is saying this Special Prosecutor thing is a waste of time. Just decouple the AG from the Justice Ministry. And this one says, please, which particular provision of the Constitution provides for the removal of the EC chair? Just wants education. Okay, so that's Article 146. Looking, the entire of Article 146 makes provision for the removal of superior justices of the superior courts of judicature, and persons like Madam Charlotte say come under that, the NCCE boss and others. Now, Musa Abatwa Nkumasi says, now President Akufo-Addo has a golden opportunity to call a member of a party whose utterances is bringing the image of the party into disrepute, but failed to do so. Okay, I think we're talking about the Kennedy Japan question at the media encounter. And he says, in issues of job creation, that's where the president failed or fell short in his encounter with the press. Nonetheless, some of the journalists were not up to task, and those who were supposed to ask relevant questions were not invited. Okay, so that's according to you. Do you think some people were left out? In total, President Akufo-Addo failed. You can win power with lies, but you can never govern with lies. Lord have mercy. Nyafule Thomas from Atebubu says, I think the establishment of the Special Prosecutor's Office is nothing but a duplication of efforts and a burden on the public purse. So the AG and the Ministry of Justice is not competent enough to prosecute corrupt officials. I think the President should declare war on corruption as he has sworn to fight Galamsey. Okay, let me take the last one here. Sabina, who appoints the Special Prosecutor? A politician, and you think the person will not have his root to the party in power? The person adds chia to it. Anyways, well, but according to the bill, it will be the AGs, the Attorney General, who would appoint, not...
No.
That is what the bill is proposing. Persons to nominate.
And then Parliament to actually, if you like,
I think this is a good time for us to move on to the economy, please. We don't have much time. It's just about 13 minutes more to look at this. So quickly, let's look at the economy. And Honorable Adongo, let's look at the economy as presented by the president. He goes on, and with this one, I think I'd like to quote him here. I'll try to get some things he said. He says, the macroeconomic indices are beginning to show a turn for the better. The monetary policy rate of the Bank of Ghana has been cut from 25.5% to 22.5% in the first half of the year. Inflation has gone down from 15.4% in December 2016 to 12.1% in June 2017. It says a period of 6 months, the lowest in 4 years. The benchmark 91-day Treasury bill rate was 22.8% in January last year and has narrowed to 11.9% in June 2017, the lowest in 5 years. Are you convinced by this?
Yeah, the question is he saying this as an achievement of the MPP or an achievement of government? Because he refers to months January 2016 when he wasn't managing the economy, and then comes back to refer to June 2017. Is he referring to this improvement as government? In which case, yes.
Which is a continuum.
Yes, in which case there is substance in it. But if you're referring to it as the performance of the MPP, then we have to isolate the issues. Okay. Because we didn't end the year with 91-day Treasury bill at 22.8%. We didn't end it that way. Right. We ended at 16.7%. Sure. And so the 22.8% was in January. Then it creates a problem because between January and December, the MPP wasn't managing the economy. But I think that's a fair comment. So that is one thing that we need to put in perspective. What are the fundamentals of the economy as we speak today? How is the economy performing? And I particularly want to refer to the question that Bernard Abley asked and the response that we got from His Excellency Vice President. The Vice President makes the point that the economy is growing. Yes, the economy is growing. But the economy is growing purely on account of oil. And I'll give you the figures. Last year, on account of oil and gold exports. Last year, at this same time, the total exports that we had from oil was 400 million Ghana cedis. In the same period this year, it is $1.2 billion. The same period last year, our gold exports was only 2 billion. Today, it is 3 billion in the same period. So the economy itself has rebounded on account of gold and oil. And I have said that last year, if you look at the economy, oil and gas recorded a negative of 17% growth, negative 17% growth. The mining sector, particularly represented by gold, recorded about 10.7% negative growth. That has rebounded. And it was because we have these FPSO problems and the downward prices of oil on the market. So the reality is that for the first half of the year, statistics available from the Ghana Statistical Survey indicate that the economy minus oil grew by 3.9%. The same period last year minus oil, it grew by 6.3%. So if you take oil out and you look at the real sector minus oil, can we say that if you did 6.3% last year and you are doing 3.9% this year, that reflects an improvement in the economy? I have a challenge with that. The other challenge is that you have to look at our debt profile, because in answering the question why we said you will be relying on domestic resources to fund this economy and will not be borrowing, and now you borrowed about 40 billion. We saw the answer. Obviously, the government for the first quarter of the year added 5 billion to our public debt. That is between January and March. Statistics, information released by Bank of Ghana only 2 days ago, I think that was yesterday, the financial and economic data that was released shows that for the first 5 months, we have added 15 billion to our public debt. That gives you an average of $15 billion Ghana cedis to our public debt in 5 months. What that means is that on average, we're adding 3 billion to our public debt. Does that answer the question that Baumia answered? Because Baumia said our public debt is coming down. The reality is that we are rather accumulating 3 billion every month.
Very the debt to GDP, wrap up for me. We have very limited.
It's a very sensitive subject, but the debt to GDP, as of last year, this time, was 63%. Right now, at this time, it is 67.5%. So you have to look at the economy from the right perspective of comparing the same period to the same period and looking at the key drivers of the economy to see where are we getting the growth so that we are able to properly focus attention on where we need to improve. And I believe that there's a lot of work to be done in order to improve the real sector minus oil.
Sure.
And that is my...
Very well. Mr. Jantua, this issue about public debts, I mean, stock rising, the borrowing and everything, is coming from this, perception that the NPP had campaigned on, a certain promise that we are not going to borrow as much as the previous government. We are going to, mobilize money internally and all of that. Obviously, 6 months down the lane, you're looking at a period of really, after the budget was read in March or April, you have just about 4 months. If anything at all, policies that have been put in place are yet to, Is it the case that perhaps you're looking at a situation of an over-ambitious campaign and now being faced with the reality of the fact that, yes, government machinery needs to move on, even as you try to put in place policies that would eventually make you able to mobilize the local resources or the revenue locally as you, intend to or desire?
I believe the MPP, one, needed to win an election. Two, needed to show an intention of how to win that election, and made very ambitious promises. Now, there's nothing wrong in making an ambitious promise, but you need to be able to predicate that promise on... You need to be able to predicate that promise on viable finances that you'd be able to use to make your intentions come to reality. I think 6 months for me, and it's my opinion, 6 months for me is too early to be able to determine whether government is being able to achieve its promises in its manifesto. I think the litmus test would be where the economy is concerned, and the president alluded to it.
He did, yeah.
Job creation. For me, that would be the key determinant as to how we see this economy going. If it so happens that the parts of the economy are working and other parts are not working, I wouldn't say they would have achieved their goal. We need to have some kind of holistic look at how we move the economy to a certain point. Now, I would be very grateful and I'll be very happy if I see a situation where we've been able to move out of wholesale exports in terms of adding value to some of the things that we have. Now, I'm in the NDPC, and we were looking at this whole issue of railway and which would be the best way and the best places to place railway and where to start from. And in doing that, we looked at what are some of the mineral resources we have that we can say can augment our economy, not to rely on the cocoa and the oil and all that, but bring the others in line. And when you look at the Western Corridor and you look at the quantum of minerals in the ground, I would expect and I would hope that when the time comes, as they're talking about bauxite, we don't only do bauxite in whole.
Raw like that, yeah.
We do bauxite with added value because that would help the economy. We would perhaps, as Honorable was referring to oil, make sure that that oil revenue we are getting is invested in those areas in the economy that have the quick turnaround, so that we'll be able to gather enough revenue and cut a lot of these loans that we're going for, because deficit doesn't help an economy grow at all. And if we're going for the 12 billions and the 40 billions, still we're going to be faced with problems of being able to pay. Now, I would have hoped.
And there's also the challenge of revenue generation, which according to statistics we are not meeting.
Yes, I would have hoped that the MPP coming into power, what they would have done was to look at the whole structure of borrowing. The NDC, when they were in power, tend to borrow short term. So the maturity of these loans came up very quickly. Yeah. I would have preferred that the MPP look at it and say to Ghanaians, We're taking loans till years of 25, 35 years. So that when you're investing in particular projects, you can put the plans in place, you can add value, and the returns would be seen within that duration of time that the loan now becomes mature.
Very well.
But so far, that hasn't been done, and I feel that if we're not able to bring down the deficit, we're going to have problems with regards to how this economy grows and how we want it to grow.
Right. And interestingly, the president also talked about the fact that we're not going to extend the IMF program,
yes,
and that we're going to try to depend on our
good thing.
And all of that. Yes, it's good, but is it possible or is it feasible? Is another thing. There are two different things. Well, we'll see about that. But we need to take a break.
But we went there.
We need to take a break. We'll be right back to conclude
there
on this, and indeed conclude on the show this morning. We'll see you shortly. Today's Saturday edition, and we're just about wrapping up on the show today. But I need to take the views from the gentleman on my extreme left, Lawyer Opon and Nana Fidra. Mr. Opon, let me come to you on this. I mean, I touched on quickly, yes. I touched on the fact that the president confirmed that yes, the IMF program is not going to be extended, and that we should be able to on our own, generate revenue sufficiently to do all of that. That's 2018, just a year away from now. How feasible do you think that is?
Well, I think it should be. I didn't support it from the beginning, especially also because we glorified it by calling it IMF program, when indeed it was a loan that was given to us by IMF. And we avoided going to Parliament for the people of Ghana to even know the content of the entire loan transaction, contrary to the Constitution itself. So, in my view, anything that would take us from what I still consider to be a non-constitutional act, I wish it can happen tomorrow. Because we complain about we engaging in illegality. But this is a particular one that I still hold the view that to the extent that it didn't go to Parliament to comply with Article 181, it is a loan, and we have still failed to comply with the constitutional provision. But then again, I mean, I hold the view that sometimes we confuse loans with indebtedness. And I held the view over the time that let us separate the loans that we are granted from the indebtedness. Because we may take 10 billion, but if we have used it, let's say, to get an interest, a benefit, which is worth about 5 billion, why are we still talking about the loan we took? So, we are being told now that the amount that was taken was applied to reduce the loan. So when you strike that particular amount and the loan we have reduced, unfortunately, as we sit here, there's no agreement on our indebtedness as a nation. And that is very serious. I once even asked that then all those we are owing should rather come and tell us how much we are owing them. It was a very big debate. So, as for borrowing, we may. And also, I'm curious, why are we still taking some portions of our oil into an account outside the country, heritage fund, stabilization fund? We go to that same market, which has, and then they recycle our own money and give it to us as loans at very high.
Because we can't trust politicians.
No. Why I will rather a politician handles this money than, at one time, 2012, the interest we had was less than 1%.
And because of the instruments we're investing in also.
Yes, and we go to the same market and we take about 100 times what they are paying us. What is the prudence in this? Why don't we?
But yeah, you as a personal person, you have savings, but you still go for loans.
No, the point is that sometimes you can even use your savings as a guarantee. But for me, I don't think that if I go to a bank, the bank is paying me 1% for keeping my money, and then I go for a loan and they charge me 30%.
Mr. Mo, I need to move on. Time is up, but Nana, I need to hear you on this.
Hey, time is up. Wrap up. Time is up.
Wrap up for us. I owe you. I owe you 2 minutes of airtime. Next time you come, give me a demand notice, and I'll give it to you.
You said you owe me the airtime.
2 minutes of airtime. Next time you come, save me a demand notice. I'll let you have it.
I mean, this is a whole thing of issues that you raised. For me, the bottom line is this: are we on the right track? has the president exposed to us what our future looks like? Can a business person, listening to what he said, checking out the realities on the ground, be more confident now than he was a year ago? For me, that's the issue. And as far as I'm concerned, that's what the president has imbibed or put into us. There's a certain high confidence level that he's been able to generate. And that one, the Honorable Odongo referred to some 6% versus some 3%. I think that one alone adds another 10% to the 3%. Because when they say that the high confidence, yes, because now people are able to map out their future. They have a clearer idea of what the future looks like. There's a saying that for the Americans, they say, or there's a saying in the international community, when the America sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold. That's what's going on now. When the president gives us confidence in what he plans for us, it gives the confidence for people to now start planning.
Very well.
If you walk into the one district, one factory office, for example, the ideas that are coming out, the plans that people are taking.
Too bad.
All this thing about because
too bad I have to. Too bad, Banana. I told you, I owe you 2 minutes of airtime. Next time you come, I'll give that to you.
Such is the world.
But thank you so much. Thank you so much, viewers and listeners, for your contributions. And I would like to read, but unfortunately we can't. So I'd also say a big thank you to the panelists from my far left, Nana Freidua Ajima Furiata, Mr. Yao Opon, Mr. Jantua, and the Honorable Isaac Adongo. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming to the show. We'll be back here next week. See you next week. Have a good weekend and a productive week. Bye-bye.